Hello, everyone, and welcome to the December edition of Techspert Talks. I'm Troy Rainey, and I'll be your host for today's session. Today's presentation is Qlik Cloud App Navigation Showcase with our own Patrick Nordstrom. Patrick, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks. Good to be here again. I've done a couple of these before. So my name is Patrick Nordstrom. I'm the product manager for Qlik Sense visualizations and G-Analytics and a couple of other things as well. I started at Qlik back in 2017 when Qlik acquired IDEVIO, which was the base for the product inside of Qlik for geospatial analytics.
Great. And today we're going to be exploring the changes to navigation, talking about some improvements for better flow, new app customizations, and tricks for moving around quicker. So Patrick, let's start with the major changes to the user interface. Can you explain what's new and how it's an improvement?
Yeah, so the changes we made are driven by several different factors. Also, much of the work that I'm showing today is by the design group as well. We have a challenge as we grow Qlik, we get more and more products. There's a need for a more unified navigation. That's why you see changes in the top bar, and we want to align all the products so they will become more easier to learn and to navigate if everybody uses the same design patterns. So you might have seen the waffle, how you can reach different products within the Qlik platform.
I love how the waffle's there all the time. It's always in the same place.
Yeah, we want to have this unified UI.
And from your experience, what features are customers asking for?
Yeah, they really like to customize their apps to make them their own. One part is the charts and the content and the data model and everything, but also the navigation, how you move between sheets, how you pick your bookmarks, basically how you perceive the app. That is really important to the customer. And sometimes his own content and the structure of the app is more important than all our other products. He might not even be using everything in the Qlik platforms. His user might be more interested on how to navigate to the about page or how to get to the starting page or whatever he wants to do. But we want to give the customer and the users as many options as possible to customize the experience.
So let's start inside the app. I know most common feature for me is just the basic bookmark. And with the new changes to the UI, where is the default location for bookmarks, and is it possible to move that around?
Yeah, so let's start with an empty app here.
Okay.
You got the waffle menu, you got the navigation between the parts in the app, you got the title, you got the inside advisor, you got notifications from the hub. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
We have gathered everything in a left panel called the asset panel. So here you will find the sheets and also the bookmarks. And you will have notes and you will have also key driver analysis.
It's great having it all in one place, and this is a lot more options than the old drop-down.
Yeah, so we have options to show it as cards or as details. You also have an option to pin the asset panel or not. So if you want it always to visible, so if you navigate to a new page, it normally closes. You can also decide whether you want to see full screen mode, more like the app overview we used to have. It was a hard time coming up with a good name for the asset panel. So we call it the asset panel. So it might not be super obvious to the user. We added settings to control the UI. You might have seen that you will be able to switch off the toolbar and the sheet header.
Mm-hmm.
You now also have options to switch on and off two optional buttons. So if you don't like the asset button, you can switch on sheets and bookmarks. So you will have a direct access to sheets and bookmarks.
Ah, very cool.
We also listen a lot to our customers. So if they have opinions about the UI, we of course want to pick that up as quickly as possible. And when you have the sheets and bookmarks buttons on, you don't see the notes and the key driver analysis.
And real quick, if you unpin that menu, does it come back if you hover, or how does it?
Let's create a couple of sheets. And if I pin it, if I navigate to a new sheet, then my panel will stay. But if I unpin it, if I go to a new sheet, the panel will close and I have to open it again to get to the next page.
Okay.
So now the asset panel is back because I'm in edit mode. The asset panel has a lot of more tabs when you are in edit mode. You also have your fields, your master items, your charts. That's why we need the asset panel that way. But I can still use my bookmarks and sheets shortcuts. The properties is the right-hand property panel. So we go to sheets, we introduced a new feature called sheet groups. So I can add a new group. That is one of the things that people have been asking for the most, to be able to group sheets. Customers' apps, they normally don't have like 1 or 2 sheets. They can have up to 100 or even more sheets.
Yeah, with that many sheets, it can be a lot to manage and keep organized.
We do have sheet conditions, so you can organize them by showing and hiding, but this is a nice addition in the same time. You can also rearrange your sheets. So maybe I want that one to be called home. I want the app to end with perhaps an about page where I explain more about the app. I can arrange my sheet, I can move them out of the group, and I can move things in the group, and I can rearrange inside of the group as well.
That's very cool.
Create a couple of more, make another group, call that marketing. And I can have this logical order of things in my app. And I can collapse my groups as well, so it's easy to navigate. This opens up for same action on several sheets at the same time. Everyone who has tried to publish sheets in an app where you have like 50 sheets, it gets kind of tedious. Now just add them to a group and then publish the group. So let's do them, public all of them here, just like that.
Very nice. Is it possible to put a group inside a group nested?
No, there's a restriction on having just one level. At least that's the starting point.
Okay.
You can rearrange even if you're in public mode. So this is to be able to be compatible with older apps, but still we have one level of sheets. You can resize the panel. It's especially interesting when you have longer field names.
Mm-hmm.
I have quite short field names. I mean, it's a good practice not to have longer field names, but I know that customers love to have longer field names. Then you can resize the panel to make them fit.
Has this edit sheet panel been updated as well?
Yeah, the field panel has been changed quite recently, so it looks more like the one that we have in the simplified authoring, where you can expand it and you can see the individual values as well. You are also possible to make selections inside of edit mode, which we haven't been able to do before, except in simplified mode.
That's a nice improvement.
Yeah. It also gives you a hint on what kind of field it is. This is a string value, and this is a number, and this is something geographic. Also, it has a much more dense look and feel. We recognize that most of our users do the development on desktop, even if they might consume on other devices. We will probably see more changes into the asset panel, something that we are changing as we are going along. Of course, this is a new way to do things, and there will always be people who like the old style or like something completely different. Navigation is so primary to how people perceive an app. So that's why we offer a way to customize this. We launched something called the navigation menu.
Oh.
So the navigation menu is a widget that you place on your app. It feeds on the structure that you have given the app in the sheet structure. The sheet hierarchy are reflected in the navigation widget. So we're not organizing the sheets in the navigation widget. We're styling how this panel should look like. So you can decide whether you want to have a left panel like this. And of course, this is intended to replace the sheets panel. So I probably will have my app looking something like this. And probably I will switch off the hover menu as well. The nice thing about the widget, it's got quite a lot of options for how to style it. The basic ones are if you want a vertical or horizontal mode. So the vertical one is a panel, and the horizontal one becomes a drop-down like this.
Ah, nice.
There's a couple of different options, whether you want to fill the whole space or if you want to make it as small as possible. And of course, you have a lot of styling options. You have all the ordinary stylings that most charts have, but there's also some specific ones. So you can change the font or the labels, and you can also change the default color should be. So if I want to change something else, the highlight color, that will be the color that the current sheet will have. So now I'm on the about page, so that's why it's highlighted with black. I can also make it change, so when I hover over it, it will give me a different color.
Very cool.
And there's, of course, more styling options as well. We're going into styling for the menu. I can also change the background color, some kind of grayish. Maybe I want the highlight color to be different. Let's not make the same. Maybe I want to use a different hover color as well. Become a completely different look and feel of the app. And we know that this is one of the most common tasks that people do with the button, that you create a lot of buttons and you can tie them to go to a specific sheet and you can change the color. But it's quite tedious if you want to do that for all of your sheets. So we think that this menu widget will simplify the editing and solve this use case of having a custom navigation. Perhaps I want to also switch off the toolbar and the sheet header, so it will become super dense like this. So I only have my top bar.
Yeah, we've often gotten the question like how to make this interface as clean and simplified as possible.
Yeah.
Yet being able to turn things off it's pretty cool to have all that control. What else
Yeah.
can you do in those settings at the top?
Yeah, so I'm now showing a demo server, which will also show the breadcrumb for which space I'm in. In many cases, people want to do things from the app. So I'm in the app, but I still want to know what kind of space I'm in.
Is that
And
the name of the space or is that the space type?
that's the name of the space.
Okay.
So that there will be more settings. Since this is an experimental server, I will be also possible to switch on and off the logo, switch off the drop-down. I can turn off the help page, the notifications, and also my profile picture if I want. There
Wow.
will be also a possibility to set the logo per app. You now can do the logo, but perhaps pick that one. And maybe I want to switch that on as well to show the logo as well. So I can have my custom logo for this specific app. There will be more settings like this also for the top bar. So you will be able to do all the kinds of modifications that you want.
That's fantastic.
The details panel is new as well. So it will also give you more actions that you normally see just from the hub.
Oh yeah, being able to build the reload schedule right there. That's pretty cool.
And there are settings, of course, already today to switch off other things as well to make it even more clean.
So can you show us an app that has all these new features already enabled?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Here's a more worked out example. I picked up the colors from my background image. I've used the settings for the borders and the shadows also for the menu. And I decided on a font that I like. And I also worked with the sheet descriptions. If you have written something in the sheet description, as you hover, that will be also shown in a tooltip.
Ah, very cool. And that's that navigation menu widget you highlighted before that we're looking at.
Yes, exactly.
That's great.
Which will help a lot if you're designing an app and you wanted to make it as self-explanatory as possible. It's up to every user to build this app as he sees fit, but we think that this navigation menu will fill a lot of requirements that users may have on navigation.
And would you recommend for app developers, once they get this look and feel like they want it, to make this a master item so it's easier to apply to all the sheets?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be the normal use case. Create your menu and then you turn it into a master item and then you place it on every sheet. Then you have one set of settings for all of your sheets.
Okay, now it's time for Q&A. Please submit your questions to the Q&A tool on the left-hand side of your On24 console. We've already got a few come in, so I'll just read them from the top. First question. We like the new pivot table. When will it be possible to rearrange the dimensions using like kind of a drag and drop?
Yeah, so the new pivot table, you can already change it, but you have to be in edit mode.
Okay.
Primary objective for the new pivot table was, of course, to pick up all the requirements from customers on the pivot tables. And one of the primary ones was the ability to style and have these additional features to make it look more like a standard pivot table with not too many buttons. So what we will do is that we will add the chart exploration menu also from the new straight table also to the pivot table. Then you will have a specific panel that you can switch on if you want to do pivoting and you want to turn on and off dimensions. Pivoting or changing dimensions and rows in a pivot table may sound like a common task, but quite rare to do. A lot of advanced users are always asking for that, but it's not an everyday task of the majority of the users. So that's why we decided not to burn resources on that features on the first day. So we wanted to release it early.
Sure. Next question. How to lock in a range of colors used in a heat map, so they would be in a specific range. So that's a pretty specific question.
Yeah, so different ways to do coloring in sense. So you can define your colors in a custom theme, you can define your colors in a load script in a table, or
Okay.
you can use master items. So you can create a master measure, and then you can use something called segment colors. And then you decide how the colors should look like. Then you can decide on the starting color and the end color. And also if you want to use a gradient. There's a couple of ones that are full that are picked up from the theme, but you can also make a custom one. Of course, there is also function calls that you can do. You can use something called color mix to create any kind of gradients that you want. In this area of coloring, we hope to make it a bit easier in the future. I can't reveal too much, but I hope to be able to set this kind of gradients and set dimension colors directly in a chart. Of course, when you are doing coloring is one of the strongest features that we have that we can add to an app. It becomes a very powerful source, but it's also easy to go wrong. So I recommend everyone to first construct your app without using colors. Use it just black and white or the two colors that you like. And then when you're done, trying to figure what do I want coloring to reflect in my app rather than to go for the fruit salad directly. You will help your users a lot if you use a consistent coloring. So the colors means the same, hopefully in the whole app, but at least on the same sheet. So if you decide for a color green, it should mean something on that specific sheet at least, preferably in the whole app.
It's very good advice. Appreciate that. Next question. Could you explain the changes with variables in bookmarks? Do you know about that?
Yeah. So one of the things that people are using variables for are to control the UI. If you have a user, he can go in and switch on. Maybe you have a button to switch on something that should pop up, or you switch your measures or something. That becomes a state of the app. You make your selections and then you flip switches to make some measures active. When a user makes a bookmark, that state of that measure that he picked using a variable should also be stored in the bookmark. So that's why we changed the control for storing variables, not to be in the bookmark, but to be in the variable. So I, as an app developer, if I'm using UI state variables, I can pinpoint which measure I'm using in the chart. That variable state should be stored in a bookmark, and there's a tick box for that. I, as a developer, might be using variables for many different things. Also, storing variables is very costly, can lead to other side effects as well. So it's a good change that now I, as an app developer, should decide which variables that goes into the bookmark and not the end user.
That makes sense. Next question. What is the recommended way to set a chart to always show data from the previous 90 days from today? So I guess they're looking for a rolling time frame.
Yeah, so this goes back to using master calendars. I recommend everybody to read up on the blog post that we have in this matter on how to construct your perfect calendar. So when you load the data, you should also load a master calendar that will give you flags for all of those features, such as year to date or rolling 90 or average or everything that you might possibly want. That is the quickest way to do it. Of course, you can fiddle with your own set expressions as well if you want, but I recommend everybody to use a master calendar for that. There's so really nice blog post by Henrik Kronström on master calendars.
All right, I'll include that link for sure. Next question. How can I prevent users from unlocking a locked field?
The locking of fields is something the user can do. He can lock a selection, and so that's part of the selection state. It might be in the future that we might change that behavior so the app developer can restrict more on the interaction with the selections. So there are other ways to lock how fields should behave. One way is to hide them completely. That is starting with percentage. So you hide the
There you
field
go.
from the data model. Could be one way to do it. Another way to be it could be to use only one selected. It only should be one always selected. That's another way to do it. But
Great
right
tip.
now, the locking is part of the selection method, and I think all users have the ability to make selections and to lock fields as well.
Great. Next question. What are the limitations with the container object?
So we do have several containers. Perhaps we are talking about the latest one, the one that everybody really loves, which is the layout container,
Yes, I believe
which
that's probably what they're
make
talking
it
about.
possible to overlap objects and position them freely. So that was a major change in order to build more customized solutions. So we wanted to release that really, really early and not wait until next year. So that one is already available. But when we did that, there are a couple of different limitations.
Okay.
One was the chart exploration for the straight table, which was not available. We lifted that limitation, so now you can open up that panel also in the layout container. Another restriction is the layout container behavior with switching off the grid and having overlapping is only available in the layout container. But we're right now working on a new sheet that will both work as the old one with the grid and no overlap, and also have the options to work exactly like the layout container where you can overlay things and you can position things freely. Another limitation is that, let's say you create a container with 50 different objects. We can't do export on a container. Since you can have so many objects in a container, what should the export be like? If you want to know more about the limitations on the layout container, I recommend to go to the documentation, check out the layout container and the subsection limitations.
Perfect. I'll find the link to that. Next question. Are there any plans to add a Gantt chart to the list of available chart objects?
Gantt chart is one of the things that we are considering. There are a couple of different other things that are ahead of that, we think. It's also possible to use the combo chart and other charts to do similar behavior. If we do a Gantt chart, it will be quite a basic one. What people mean by Gantt chart is different depending on who you ask.
Okay, great. Next question. How to best show parallel timelines, if you have any recommendations for that.
One of the strengths of Qlik and the associative engine is that you can merge your data model to have a common timeline. You can see your orders and your deliveries on the same timeline, that everything gets connected in Qlik. If I make selections in year, that affects all of my parts in my dashboard. I don't have to write complicated SQL statements or DAX expressions in order to link the different parts of my data model, like you have to do in Power BI or Tableau or any of the others. So everything is connected, and that is a strength in the data model, I think.
Yeah.
You can, of course, decide that I want to have an alternate timeline. So my timeline for projects should not be the same calendar as the one for orders. But then they will become two separate ones.
Great answer. Is there an easy way to apply changes in a theme to multiple apps at once?
If multiple apps are using the same theme, if you are making changes to that theme,
It should apply to them all, right?
yeah, that should be applied to them all.
All right, so it's already there. Great.
I'm sure there are people who've made scripts. You can go in and alter what kind of themes an app has. An app has a connection to a selected theme. So you might be able to write a script that iterates through a couple of apps and set the theme to something else.
Okay. Next question. This is a little bit longer one. Do you have any recommendations for cycling through different currency values for an app so that the user can quickly change the sales total from euros to dollars, for example?
Yeah. Again, Hick has made a great example on how to handle currencies in an app. We can link to that blog post. It's written for QlikView, but of course that's part of the data model, so I would highly recommend to use that. When it comes to currency values, they are normally changed by a different interval than your orders might have, but it's a great post about that. I thought about including that in my next top 10 tips on how to handle currency.
Cool.
But it's all worked out. It's knowledge that's 10, 15 years old already.
It's nice to know that is already out there, and I'll link to that. Next question. Is it possible to rebrand a tenant, like an OEM tenant?
Absolutely. There's an API for branding. It's Dave Shannon who is the PM for that, but we can provide a link to branding of tenants. At Qlik Dev, there's a tutorial on how to brand things.
And last question we have today, where can we find the example app that you showed in the demonstration?
So the one that we've more worked out is in the tech preview section of the support page. So for every on-premise release, we provide a tech preview of the on-premise release. That we do that twice a year for the May release and the November release, usually 30 days ahead. And in that forum, you have to apply and you have to sign an agreement that you want to take part in the tech view program. Then you will have access to that beta version of Qlik Analytics. But you will also have access to the forum where we post slides for what's new and also an app. I usually make an app because it's easy to show the UI features that we delivered through an app. Also, the demo team is taking all these apps and making a what's new app in the demo section. The majority of the changes are the 6 latest releases. I also recommend to keep track of the changelog in Qlik SaaS or the cloud edition, because we deliver so many new features coming on. And if you have subscribed to that news channel, you will get notifications when we have a new feature out. Then you can be the first one to know about everything.
Is that feature that's available in the little question mark?
Yeah, you have to go to the help page and there's this changelog and you can subscribe to it.
Great. Well, that's it for questions we have today. Thank you so much, Patrick. This has been really cool to see, first of all, that we've got all these new features and to see them applied and have it all explained. I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks a lot, Troy. It's good to be here.
Great. Thank you, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this session. And special thanks to Patrick for presenting. We always appreciate getting experts like Patrick to share with us.
Here's our legal disclaimer. And thank you once again. Have a great rest of your day.